Rhymes with quartz and sports.
That's right, yes. Thank you. Okay, so I'm normally a Bitcoiner, of course, and this is my idea for Bitcoin. But I was asked to come here and show it to Litecoin. Litecoin took the SegWit idea before Bitcoin, and in particular, I do think that Litecoin. I am a maximalist at heart, and I think only one coin will reach 8 billion people, and that coin will win, and everything else will probably go to zero. So I think if you're Litecoin, you got to think like, how can I exploit the weaknesses of BTC? But so this idea, it's very simple to me, but for some reason it's complicated. Even the best minds in Bitcoin don't really understand it. But we have working software that has a GUI. So this is like in one slide what I think what people should do, and that is try the software. Go to layer2labs.com/download, and I'm going to give you some screenshots just so you see what this sort of looks like. But just try it out. It has a fake play money coins. So we have a faucet and everything. You can get coins. These are not Bitcoins. These are not Litecoins. They're fake coins, but they show you what the software would do if you activated this on Litecoin. And then I have a website, drivechain.info. There's an unbelievable amount of content there. I have another site at bit300qsif.com. I'll talk about that if anyone has any questions on exactly what to do. And then I think like you get into your head like kind of what I am planning for this idea, which is to reach 8 billion people and have planetary scale, have Zcash level privacy, have all these features, live in a world where the different developers can disagree with each other but still be using the same coin. So if you think that this is a good idea, this is a very easy thing to actually add to Litecoin, I think. I haven't actually looked into it that much, but there is this activator client that 51% of the hash rate needs to run, and that's basically it. And you can even shut it off later. So you can just try this out, and maybe if the entire community hates it for some reason, you can just go back. So this is, the download page. So there's nothing for a mobile phone yet, but we have all 3 operating systems you can download, and we have a GUI. And this is sort of what it looks like. This is a version of Bitcoin on the top, and then we have all these other chains that are, one of them is a version of Zcash that I call Zside. And it is a clone of the latest version of Zcash, but it has no coins on it. You just send the coins from L1 to this L2 chain, and then you can use Z addresses, and you have privacy, and you have reusable long ZK-based address. And some of these other ones are just like test chains, a blank chain that just has nothing, so it's easy for you to add your own thing to that. And then Thunder is like a large block sidechain. That's like my joke a little bit. So this is the drivechain.info site. This is just a screenshot. But I have an unbelievable amount of content here and have an enormous number of endorsements as well. If you go to layer2labs.com/friends, I have a lot of endorsements, but I have one of them here about Adam Back said this on stage in Baltic Honey Badger. He said, Drivechain arguably could have been more important or useful than Taproot. So that's just one tiny endorsement. But it's going to be very, and this is this thing QSIF, which is this way of activating a soft fork. This already exists. So you can already download it, and you just go to this site, and I have a paper that explains how it works. So yeah, again, if Litecoin could do this, by this I mean this screenshot on the right. I'm not completely sure if there's the if it can do this like the ZMQ block thing, but if Litecoin is up to date with Bitcoin, then it can, and so then you just run this stuff. And you just need 51% hash rate to run this. And then, as I mentioned before, you can actually just shut it off and deactivate it if you. This is kind of annoying because anyone who has put coins into the system will maybe lose them if you were to reverse it. But other than that tiny detail, is kind of like a very low cost thing. So that was kind of just me trying to throw a lot at you there. But now I have, this is what I normally do is give this talk to Bitcoiners about what Drivechain is. So now I'm going to try to go a little through that, but I do think that Q&A is probably a much better, has a much better chance of giving you something that you actually will appreciate and get something useful out of. But I'm going to try to give a skeleton here first. And so the idea is, again, you just have to cross off Bitcoin and put Litecoin for everything here, because I really am a Bitcoiner, and I'm here for the Bitcoin conference. I'm speaking at the Bitcoin conference, but I was asked to come here, and I think it would be great if Litecoin took this idea. But just replace Bitcoin with Litecoin. And so the idea is that now everything has its own chain and its own coin. It has its own software and its own coin. But with the drive chain idea, you only have the one coin. You don't need any of these other coins anymore. And then the coins travel among different pieces of software that may have completely different, they may be written in completely different programming languages. They may be doing completely different things. They may have different block size. So if there's ever a big dispute, such as the block size dispute, or some people don't really want too much privacy on BTC for various reasons, but other people do want it. So if there's a dispute, you just have different pieces of software. And I have some metaphors about this. About like, okay, so yeah, again, my view is that really that one single coin will win and the rest will be defeated. But definitely each of the types of thing that people will want to do with the blockchain, all of those will exist in the form of different software. So I kind of have like Bitcoin today would be like this old phone. And then eventually you still have something that we still call a phone, but it does all these other things. It does, it takes video, it plays audio, it does all these things. So money has network effects, so that's kind of one of the reasons why I think. So yeah, basically this is kind of like, instead of Ethereum, the altcoin, you have this like bit Ethereum, which is like an L2 that does everything Ethereum would do, only there are no coins on there to begin with. You send the coins back to and from that, sort of similar to the Lightning Network. So yeah, the goal would be that if, everyone disagrees over what things to do. So as people say, oh, this is great, but can it do smart contracts? Can it do whatever? And instead of arguing with them, you just say yes. And similarly, a lot of people have fringe ideas, 99% of which will be bad, but some of them will be good. And so how do we know the 99% bad versus the some that are good? Someone says, oh, I think I can improve Litecoin in this case. It only needs my new idea, which is whatever, Mimblewimble extension block. And then people, you either have to go through this big quality control process, in which case you'll probably filter some things out that are good, or let some things through that are bad. Or you just let them in, you just say use this idea BIP300, you have your own zone, and that lets each person try out the ideas that they actually like. Okay. Yeah, this is like not that important per se, but this is like me trying to say that this is similar to Lightning, where you have the coins, the orange coins are in the bottom right, and you move the coins to maybe the Lightning Network, which I don't recommend if you saw me on the panel earlier today. But you can also move them to like Bit Zcash, which is this version of Zcash that is, it has all the features. It is literally like the latest version of the Zcash node software, but just modified slightly so that it only moves around coins that have been sent to it from an L1 that has BIP300. So that would be Litecoin in this case. You have Litecoin, send the coins over to the Zcash world, and you'd have all those features, and you could do the same with Ethereum or any other EVM chain or anything else, anything with large blocks or whatever other feature. And the way this is supposed to work is that there's only a one-way like causality. So if Bitcoin Core or Litecoin, the blockchain reorganizes its blocks, then everything above it will also reorganize, but it's not the other way around. Any chaos that happens in the upper zone will be limited over there, and it will not destroy L1. So if you go onto L2, you choose to take on additional risk, and then you get also the flexibility and benefits of that. So that's the idea. I have like a tiny sort of description of how it works, but I don't know if it will make any sense, but hopefully it will make some sense, which is you have these blocks on the bottom. Those would be L1 blocks, so in this case they'd be Litecoin blocks, the blue ones. And then the reddish ones on top, I think that it's not really supposed to be blue, that is just a weird effect of the PDF conversion. It's just supposed to be red only on the top. But the red ones would be this bit Monero thing. That's everything Monero is, but only using the Litecoins that are sent to it. And they each have a bunch of blocks, and they have block headers. Block header is the square. And what happens is, in BIP300, there's this huge summary of everything that happens over 3 months. Everything that happened over the last 3 months is put into this little hash. And the hash is what is inserted in L1. the hash is really it is a description of all the withdrawal activity. So the deposit and withdrawal activity is covered by this big gray sheet. And then the layer 1 node only sees this thing that was inserted into the L1 Coinbase. So it's in BIP 300, the L1 layer is not actually looking at what happened on L2. It just looks at this summary that is very rare, once every 3 months or so. And this is like, I have some examples of this is what our software looks like. So there's like an example of this happening. This is just to give you an idea that this is really not vaporware, and we've actually worked on it, and it exists, so you should try it out for yourself, which I think is the best way. I certainly did not understand how Bitcoin worked at all until I downloaded the software and played with it for the first time, and of course many people say that no one ever really understands Bitcoin fully, so there's definitely some truth to that. Jameson Lopp, I think, often says something like that. Yeah, another interesting thing about this project is all of the fees, as I mentioned earlier on the panel, the Lightning panel. With this particular type of L2, all of the fees on all of the L2 chains, they all go down to the L1 miners. So it's my view that this is the end game. Like, what I'm trying to say is, in the long run future, if we succeed at all, like maybe everything in crypto will fail and go to zero. But if something succeeds and is wildly popular among people of the earth, people will be using it a lot and generating enormous amounts of transaction fee revenue. And so then when we look at who's going to be getting all of that revenue, it really must be the L1 miners, because if it is not, the miners would be maybe envious or jealous of whatever else is getting it, like a Lightning service provider or Arc Supernode or whatever it is, Liquid, Federation. So all these L2s have this property that the transaction fees are not paid to L1 miners, but with this idea they are. And I think in the long run it will be basically all the other L2s will be killed off, because the miners will think, well, I want all this money myself. This could be hundreds of billions of dollars per year if on the off chance something is successful with the general public. And miners have the ability to control the L1 chain, so they'll either vertically integrate with all these L2s, or they will just destroy them to get the money. And if they vertically integrate, then most of the Lightning security model is just security theater, and so people they won't like it anymore, and they'll like something like this instead, which is still secure even if. So this is a neat way of getting a lot more money to the miners. This idea is a very miner-centric idea, and luckily miners have the opportunity to make a large and growing in an unlimited sense amount of money if they try the idea out. So that's kind of a neat idea. These are sort of old, but that's the basic idea. Yeah, I did have, this is a 15 minutes, so I actually think Q&A is way more productive, but I have some weird other examples here of which altcoins I think would make great L2 drive chains, L2 side chains. So I will do that unless anyone really has like a question or something, because this is halfway through, and I think that, yes, there's a question. The question was about if you create assets on a sidechain. In that sense, we have a sidechain for that we call bit assets. This is similar to like ordinals or counterparty or ERC20, where once you're on the sidechain, this would be like its own thing where you have your own keys, you have your own randomness, and you would self-custody that in the same sense. I mean, once you're on the L2, you've adopted that new L2 security model. And from then on, it's exactly the same as what ERC20 would be in Ethereum. So it depends on what you're copying. But whatever you copy, it'll be just like that. Yes?
How does this work with emissions and total supplies of the coins?
Yeah, the question about the emissions of the coins. So this is, again, these are going to be exactly like the altcoins that they copy, except for that one thing, where those coins, the L2 blockchains, They do not have their own coin at all, necessarily. I mean, you could add one. But when you're going to have an L1 that is Litecoin, 84 million Litecoin, and then you have the L2, and on the L2's first day, it will have 0 coins on it. You'll have 0 coins for a while until someone chooses to deposit. And those would be like the first 4 coins or whatever that are over there. So there is no tail emission, there is no emission at all. There are no new coins being created on the L2. The coins are only created on L2 when they're locked on L1, and then when they're withdrawn from the L2 and destroyed, they get unlocked on L1. They cannot be moved. So the coins are just moving around, and so there is no emission of any kind. Does that make sense? No? All right. Uh-huh. Yes. No. You deposit the LT, you deposit Litecoin to this thing, and this thing does not necessarily know anything about the real Monero at all. This is like the opportunity to take advantage of the Monero's ring signatures. And people like the privacy feature, but there is no actual XMR. And a lot of people get confused about that for some reason. I think this is a, maybe I should explain it differently. Exactly, yes. There is no XMR, and in fact, that's partly some of the wording on the slides. I'm implying that there will be no need for the real XMR. Once one coin takes over, has a big enough foothold, it will be able to do every actual thing that people wanted to do, and there will be no need for the actual altcoin itself. That was, maybe I'll try to go back to it. It's a lot of slides ago, but I'll just, if you, yeah. BIP 300 is not in use. Oh, sorry. It's you'd be the. I have never released an activation client until this month, so no one really could use it. But I've talked about this idea for a very long time, as some people know, and it just had no activation client for a while. But we have had, for many years, we've had our test network, which is a fork. It was a fork of an old version of Bitcoin, version 1699. That's how old this was. And so that's like what the screenshot was you saw before. And so we've had that actual code. And so I was more just tinkering with our own network with the play money and not releasing an act. But now there is this CUSF QSIV activator that does now exist, and that is the easiest and best way to activate anything, in my opinion. It's sort of similar because the Mimblewimble extension block is like a new optional thing that Litecoin decided to do. And in fact, my opinion is that a sidechain is very similar to an extension block. It's kind of like an optional extension block where there's that big filter that I had before, that gray blob that became the green thing. The Litecoin node is only seeing the tiny green thing, and it's ignoring what's going on. But really, these are an unlimited amount of extension blocks that are opaque, sort of. So you have unlimited block space, and you have the unlimited to do exotic things in there. And now, yes, hello. Yes. You did. 51% of the hash power is needed to activate. This is because although BIP 300 does not, although it does not look at everything that is happening in the L2 chain, it is doing something on L1, and that thing is you either conform to those rules for this narrowly defined like op-nop5. You either conform to that or you do not, and if you do not, it has to reject the block. And that doesn't matter if you have less than 50% hash rate. If you reject the block, you'll just be the only one not on the chain anymore. But if 51% or more rejects the block, then actually everyone, even just by doing nothing, everyone will automatically only be on a version of the chain where the rule is followed all the time, even the people who do not want to upgrade to even do this. So people could freely run old version of Litecoin, not pay any attention to any of this at all, and they will not be affected really. But that is why 51% is required to activate any soft fork, which this is. so that whoever is making the blocks, whichever mining pool or etc., they must run the activator to make sure that when they make the block, it is not accidentally violating one of the BIP 300 rules. Does that make sense? No, it's on the L1 side. Yeah. The BIP 300 part is the L1 hash rate. That's the L1 node, L1 hash rate. But actually, all the things that are happening on the L2 chains are on their own L2 network. I don't know how big of a, my guess is it wouldn't be that big of a thing. I mean, every soft fork is activated this way, and you just put out a new version of the software, and if people upgrade. In this case, you don't even need to do that. You just need to ask people to run the activator if they want, and they can, in fact, stop running the activator if they really regret it for some reason. Thank you. Yes. If anyone has any more questions. So I have 7 minutes. I can go back to sidechains I think we should copy, because I actually have a lot to say about that also. But if anyone has a question, I'm going to look down now. Okay. So, yeah. Zcash is the best one to copy because you have all this privacy, and we have already built it and it already works, so you just take it for free, and it gives everyone one single reusable address. So this is very cypherpunk, and this is very cool. This is a cool thing to just do quickly out of the gate before anyone can complain or, you know. And I had this slides because, yeah, I was noticing as a Bitcoiner that actually Monero is stealing a lot of Bitcoin's thunder. And in fact, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I think it was Peter McCormack interviewed Michael Saylor, and Michael Saylor famously said there is no second best. So I'm sure that would make him very popular at Litecoin event. But he said that, and then Peter McCormack asked him about, well, what about these people who really like privacy? And then Michael Saylor said, well, you know, if you really like privacy, maybe you do need a Monero. And of course, the Monero community took that little clip and they put it all around. But this shows, like, this is an actual use case that some people care about. And in particular, people who care about it the most are, they can't be too loud about it, right? You know, so that's something to keep in mind. Namecoin, I think Namecoin is like a totally, I don't know what to say about this. I think this idea will be so big in the future, but for some reason, people do not give it the right amount of attention today. Namecoin was actually the first, is originally sort of invented by Satoshi, and everyone should read through this thread. BitDNS and generalizing Bitcoin is fascinating. But Namecoin lets us do all kinds of crazy things, and I have written a big article about this that you can read, and this is the title. And so if you just Google it, you'll find it. But I've written a huge about it. This can replace logging in, usernames, passwords, email, get rid of spam, do all kinds of magical things. So I think this idea is like super good. And we are working on a version that I really like, but it's not completely finished right now. Yeah, you have these people like impersonators and stuff. This is all the stuff, the Namecoin sidechain, which I call bit names. This will just get rid of all this type of thing. Seizing the domain has to be impossible. It just will literally not be possible to do this. So like even, you could have like whatever, Ukraine.gov, and a foreign army could occupy the whole country, but they just wouldn't get the name. It would be like illegitimate. Then people like have this funny thing. So, but yeah, I think, so people love this NFT, ERC20, ordinals stuff. I say let everyone have a good time if they want to. So copy that. And then I'm a huge proponent of this prediction market idea, which has gotten, I've always been a huge proponent of this idea since a very young age, and even since 2012 and 2013, I started building this Bitcoin prediction market software, and now actually every election it pops up a little bit, but in particular this election with Polymarket, we are seeing the cultural significance of these prediction markets. So this is another thing that I think would make a great L2 chain, and this is some screenshots of the software that I made back in 2015. I think these are from. Okay. Yeah, there's some other ideas. I think it was 3.5 minutes a little, so maybe if anyone has any questions, if anyone thought of a question, now would be a great time. Yes? Yes. Yeah, all of the L2 chains, I think, should and must be merge mined with the L1 chain because, first of all, this is like basically free. This is very convenient. All the chains get the same hash rate in the proof of work context, and then all the fees go to the L1 miners. And if you don't do that, then you have to like answer a lot of other questions about what to do, which are hard to answer. And in particular, it's possible that maybe the chain has like an off day. These L2 chains, they don't have their own block subsidy. So if there's few people using them, the whole block reward will just be 0 coins, and the whole chain might stall out. Whereas with merge mining, no one would have this problem. It would just be every 10 minutes, it just finds all the chains. So I think I'm a huge proponent of merge mining. And in fact, BIP 301, I invented this type of merge mining called blind merge mining, where all the L1 miners have to do is include the highest paying fee, following these new soft fork rules, and they automatically merge mine all the chains without even looking at them. So I'm very, very pro merged mining. I think that is a great invention. I don't know if anyone has any. It's hard to see with the light. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think this is the way you should do it. Is I think you should do something like, why is the Bitcoin community? I think this is a key point. So there's only 2 minutes left, but this is key. This is very key. The Bitcoin community, I really think, has trapped itself in like a weird cultural cycle where they have they're very into they're very overconfident and complacent. So the story of how this idea has gone is very long, and it involves things like bad luck, like in 2017, the whole miner war erupted over the block size war, and that caused everyone to hate miners for a while. And this also led to everyone, after the block size war was over, everyone thought that the key to winning was to resist change as much as possible. So Bitcoin does not really do very much innovation, and it also has a contempt for any kind of innovation. You know, it will say like, we don't need any of that. 21 million, whatever, fixes everything, blah, blah, blah. So I think, but again, it has not been an activation client yet. So I have like lots of, this proposal is very controversial. I have lots of big supporters, and you can look at the layer2labs.com/friends list, and then it has some crazy enemies who are, and some of the enemies, it's just unreal, like, you know, Peter Todd or whatever. We hired him to do this review, and then he's on stage and he's saying there is no source code for this, but the source code with the GUI has existed for like 2.5 years when he said that. So he had never visited drivechain.info. So he's like a critic of this idea, but he has never visited the website. He had no idea that code had been written at all. He never read the BIP. So plenty of people admit they haven't read the BIP if you ask them. You know, Pierre Rochard like famously said he couldn't read past the first sentence of the BIP, or he was offended by something like that. So I think it's a completely irrational thing, and you should take advantage of that, their mistake, especially since this is a completely reversible change that doesn't really cost very much. So I think that's just about it on the time. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.